Yeah, good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible and everyone could see my screen here.
Yes, sir.
Yes, great. So where are we, guys? In the last class, I think we are looking into the Bootstrap stuff. We have seen how do we include the Bootstrap API, and we have seen some of the components, how actually it is providing the responsiveness for this, and what are the external CSS or JS files need to be included on the page to achieve the Bootstrap API. And yeah, that's what we have seen.
Sir, one part is missing, that icon part. How to link the icon and how to.
Yeah, that I'm still pending, right? I said you like
Yeah.
I'm copying that. I mean, I didn't get a chance this weekend. By tomorrow, I will show you like how do you get this icon stuff. Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah, and if possible, can you please remind me in the Telegram once? Okay, maybe tomorrow in the morning, just give a reminder to me.
Sure, sir.
Okay, so we have seen some of the components. Okay, let me show you, and we have even seen like how do we dynamically create the things. Like for example, there is a menu bar. Statically, how do you copy the content and how do you add on the page? If at all it has to be dynamic, how do you create the DOM elements dynamically? So those all things we had a look onto that. Okay, so any more questions on the Bootstrap API, guys, other than that guy? And one more thing, guys, one of the very useful concept which we have something called as grid system. Okay, Bootstrap grid system. In fact, I mean it's almost equal to your what do you say, the grid part, whatever we have already seen in our CSS3. Okay, remember like we already created the grid system where if you want to create some layout stuff, display grid system, you can specify the column templating, how many columns need to be rendered. So those things, right? In the same way, Bootstrap by default supports the grid system here. Okay. One thing what you need to understand here is anytime, okay, let me create an example for this. Okay, let us link the Bootstrap files here. Okay, so what do you mean with this grid system here? Say some. Okay, so I simply say some class equal to container. Okay, under that I go with a div, say some class equal to row. And under that I say some div, say some class equal to item, or else I say class equal to call hyphen sm hyphen 4. I will tell you what actually these classes are. Okay, say some item 1. I say MD, MD, MD. Style, let us say call hyphen MD. Okay. If I run this guy within the browser, this is how you see a container got created with multiple values here. And if you see the advantage, what you see is assume I have a menu bar, assume like I have some 3 columns need to be created. Okay, column 1, column 2, column 3. Our requirement is when it is a bigger screen, this is how it has to be displayed. But when it comes to the smaller screen, our requirement is it has to turn like a row wise. Bigger screen, column wise it is getting rendered, but when we are actually going to the smaller screen, this is how it is actually rendering as like a row wise here. So how do we achieve these type of stuff? So automatically, like based on the device dimension, see when it is bigger, if you have the space, it automatically turning into column wise and automatically turning into row wise. In general, we can actually make use of the grid system or the flex containers in order to create these type of containers. But we as a developer need to write the media queries. When it is a smaller device, it has to turn into row wise. When it is bigger device, it has to turn into column wise, right? That is what we have to do. But here Bootstrap internally supports a concept, something called as grid system. Okay, so Bootstrap internally supporting the grid system here. So what do you mean by the grid system? Internally, what your Bootstrap will do is any screen, whatever you give, it will actually divide the page into 12 columns. Okay, whatever the container you give, it will be automatically dividing that container into 12 columns. Now you need to specify how many columns what your container need to get occupied. Now I have these 3 containers here. If you see the width what I give, I say call MD4, 4 and 4. So what do you mean by this? First guy has to occupy the 4 column space, second guy 4 column space, and the third guy. Now I say something called as these guy is 6. Now if you save this is where the UI will be broken here. See, it got broken. Why so? As per the grid system, it has to be only 12 columns, but we are giving 2 columns more. So let me make it as 2 here. Now if you come back and reload the page, now if you see here, this is how the 12 columns it is coming. MD-12. Why this is like 6 and 10? This is 2. Come back and reload. What the heck is this?
Class name.
A different class name.
No, it's the same class name, right? When I say 4, save this guy, come back and reload the page. This is how it is coming. Okay, I will see that, like why actually when it is changing, it is how it is coming. I'll see that. But as I said,
CSR part.
Sir, once you check style tag.
Once I check the style tag. Oh, so here I'm modifying exactly. Instead of this, I'll do one thing. Dot row and div. Every div under the row class. Okay. Now if you come back, and now if I make it as 2 and 2, this is 4, this is 8. Okay, come back here and reload the page. Now if you see here, the first 2 columns are occupying the space of 2 columns, and whereas the third guy is occupying the 8 column space. Okay, so this is how you are actually dividing the this is how we are going to specify how many columns the page has to occupy. Under that, now we can create our own containers. Okay, so the first thing is Bootstrap internally divides the complete page into 12 columns. You need to specify how many columns need to be occupied. And under that, it is even going to divide into multiple devices, guys. Now, if you see XS, extra small, small, medium, large, XL, and double XL. So these are the container types, what it is going to specify. Now, what do you mean by this XL, etc. and all? If you could see, it is saying whenever you say XS, it means that any device which is having 576 pixel. In the same way, smaller 576 greater than equal to 576. Like this, for every other device, whatever the dimensions it is there, it is going to handle like this. Now you need to specify what device you're going to handle. Now when I say that, container, in the sense the complete main container will be there. Under that, every row, a particular row will be identified using a class called as row. Under that, there will be multiple columns. As I said, call -md. So we would like to handle the medium device. I just said it as md. If you want to handle the smaller device, you say sm, xs, whatever it is. That's it. Now under that, now you can go with the containers, whatever it is. say some height equal to say some 200 pixels. Save this guy, come back. So like this, if at all you want to create the containers, under that you put your content, more developments, whatnot. I mean, once the layout got fixed here on the top, you could able to write whatever we could able to add any content what we wanted. Okay, so this is what your Bootstrap grid system. Say for example, if you want to go with these type of look and feel, you already have this. Okay, so like this, you can create the grid system. Again, if you are strong on the CSS3 grid system, it is almost like the same. Only thing is, in your CSS3 grid system, we don't have these type of stuff. Say for example, when it is very smaller device. Okay, when it is smaller device, if you see here, it is automatically coming in the form of row wise. But if it is a bit bigger, like because we handled only medium devices, so when it is bigger, it automatically turns into column wise. Only these things we are missing on the grid system. It is not defaultly doing. We need to add the bit of media queries for that. But if you go with the Bootstrap, you don't even try to as we already saw that internally Bootstrap already defined all the media queries for all the device dimensions. You just need to make use of the class. Things will automatically get rendered. Okay, so this is what we call it as the Bootstrap grid system. One of the part which you might get some interview questions, because remaining all they cannot ask for the classes and all. But coming to the grid system, they might ask you like, when do you go for the grid system? What are the number of columns what you give? If the column numbers are greater than the 12, how it is getting occupied? So those type of questions you might face it, guys. Okay. So any questions? Or yes, please.
Oh, sorry. Sir, if you want to handle both SM and MD at a time, how can we have to give, sir?
So when you say SM here you can even specify multiple classes. But one thing is, when you say column SM here, it's all handled. Now, when you see here, when I'm reloading the page, it is automatically handling all. When I'm coming to the smaller device, this is how it is coming. Why it is like this? Okay, I gave only 2 column width, right? Let us say 444 here. And let me remove the height part. Save this guy, come back and reload the page. Okay, now if you see here, when I'm coming to the smaller device, this is how it is already handling. And when you come to the medium device, this is how it is coming. For example, I have to make MD here. Now, if you come back and reload the page, this is how it is handling. Now, when I come to the smaller, this is how it is handling. Even in the medium screens, you are having in the row wise. But when I'm coming into the XS, extra small, then it is coming into column wise. But now, so for example, this is like it is. Now I say SM, and SM. Now if you come back and reload the page, now it is coming in the column wise. Now when you go to the smaller device, then only it will come into row wise. When you are handling on the SM, it is automatically handling the MD, XS, XLS, all are already been handled. When you say MD, only till MD you're handling, you're skipping the SM. Now, if you say that, boss, I want to handle the medium devices and the smaller devices, you go to the lower version. Among the MD and SM, you use SM, obviously MD is handled. When you say extra small and MD, if you use MD, obviously XS and, MD and XS, obviously the least one XS if you use, MD is already been handled, right?
Yes, sir.
Got it, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is about the Bootstrap system, guys. So any questions up to this based on the last class, or if you get some time exploring the Bootstrap API? So what are your thoughts? Like, do you think it is easily to be implemented, or do you see the benefits on the Bootstrap API? Any points? Come on, anyone? What do you feel? Okay, if I ask you a question, like, do you feel simple to be used Bootstrap?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now if we...
A bit simpler.
Okay, so now if we give a requirement saying that you need to handle the media query, you need to handle the responsiveness of your web page. So do you really recommend going for the media queries or going for the Bootstrap API?
Or Bootstrap.
Bootstrap.
Obviously, the Bootstrap API. Why the reason? Was every predefined component is there. I can just make use of it. I make use of it. Being a developer, I don't need to take care of each and everything from the base, isn't it? But yes, it doesn't mean that once you use the Bootstrap API, everything will be covered. Not sure, because you might have some custom requirements. Okay, under the custom requirements, you have to handle the thing. So for that case, you need to write your own media queries on the top of the Bootstrap. Obviously, when the custom requirement is there, they don't say that 100% to be customized, isn't it? You use the Bootstrap API on the top, whatever the part you want to be customized, you can simply go with the custom media query problem. Okay, so make sure everybody is so clear on the media queries, guys. As I said to you, nowadays being a UI developer, the first challenging part what you have is responsiveness handling. So you should be able to handle the responsiveness of the web page. Web page should be able to render across the devices accordingly. Okay. So any more questions, or can we go forward?
Sir, can you give an example of a custom design or as such, or conditions?
Okay, say for example, we'll take a same example right now. If you see here, when I'm minimizing the thing, my requirement, it is automatically converting into menu bar. What if my requirement is the first menu should not change its color, or first menu item should change its color and it has to more decrease the width? Then how do we go for that? Simple example, right? Because when I say custom, that itself is dynamic. It will be depending upon the requirement. We cannot have every requirement as same in the custom, because if the custom requirement might be the same, that would have been already implemented in the Bootstrap. The custom requirement is dynamic based on the current web page. Practical example, I want the item 1 to be more smaller width. I don't want that guy to occupy the complete width when it is smaller. Then what should I go for? Do we need to write a media query for that? Yes. Did I answer your question, Raj?
Yes.
Okay. So, yes. So can we go forward, guys? The next part?
Yes.
So what is our next concept, guys?
Node.js.
So guys, I'm still pending with, the topic, what I'm pending in the client side is
ECMA 6.
is still pending on the client side, but I'm thinking that I have my 7 a.m. batch, which they have already done with the advanced JavaScript. They're about to start with advanced JavaScript. Maybe once I'm done with the advanced JavaScript to them, I can combine the class and I can go with the ECMA 6 concepts. So that is the only reason I'm just pausing it. Okay. So mostly in between, anyway, that is not a dependency to start the Node.js. We can start the Node.js, we'll work parallelly. Once the time comes and I'll combine the class and I'll go with the ECMA 6 concepts. Okay. So other than this ECMA 6, we are done with all the concepts of your client side part. I know that there is still one more part which I haven't got a chance to discuss, which we call it as templating concepts. Okay, so how do you create a template instead of dynamically creating the complete HTML? I will even explore, I will even show you something called as handlebar. How do we use the handlebars or Mustack or jQuery template API? Some templating APIs are there that I'll be discussing when I'm actually working on the project. Anyway, under the Node.js, I will demonstrate each and every part by implementing the things in the project. Okay, we'll create a project and we'll do the things. Okay. So,
hello, sir. Hello.
Yes, please.
Sir, I have a doubt. Sir, the websites. Sir, we see a download button on the website. Sir, is that part of front end?
Download part on the web page button, yes, it is from the client side. But on click of that, we actually hit a web service of the server side. One thing we have to make sure, guys, anytime we want to work with the files, opening a file, creating a file, reading a file, downloading a file, these type of operations cannot be done from the client side. Okay, so for that, we need to create a service, a web service. We will hit to the server. Server will respond back with the file which has to be downloaded. And on the top, now the client will take an action of downloading that to the local directive or local folder. That's it. But action on the download, how to download a file, how to write a file to the local, it is not a part of your client side. It's from the server.
Yes, sir.
Am I clear, Shreyas?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next. So coming to this guy, as I said, you templating concept and ECMA6, these are the things which are pending, guys. I will come to that. So coming to our next topic. Now you guys are so much clear about what do you mean by client-side technologies, what we could able to achieve from the client-side technologies. Everything is being done on the client side itself, like dynamic rendering, getting the data, showing everything. Everything is part of the client side only. Now, what actually we are, why the reason we are actually going with the server, guys? We already discussed. Remember, at the very starting stage, at the time of configuring your Node.js server, I discussed that servers are mainly used in order to do two jobs. Any server you go to JBoss server, you go to Tomcat Apache server, or .NET server, or Node.js server, any server you go, every server is capable of two things here. The very first thing is hosting the resources. Okay, so we could able to host the resources. Hosting the resources in the sense, copying the resources, putting into the server, and accessing the files from the server. Reason is, remember why the reason we were configured the Node.js at the server at the very initial stage? Because at that time, we know that when the people are connected within the internet or network, now you need to access the resources. You could able to access the resources only which is part of your server. The resources which are part of your hosting server, those resources can be accessible across the network. Other resources cannot be accessible. Isn't it? So that is the very first job what we have. And here, nothing to be done as a developer. You just create a server, put all the resources into the public folder, access the resources from the server. That is the first job. Now the second job is services. Every server is capable of providing some services through some web service. We already got an idea. What do you mean by web service? And simple, at the time, blindly, I ask you to create a web service like an external JavaScript file inside the server side. How do you hit the web service and how do you get the data? So that is the main heart of your servers, guys. Every server is capable of providing some services so that client can hit the service and get the data. Okay, so these are the two main jobs every server is capable of doing. So if the client could able to do these two, obviously we never depend upon the server. As client can't able to host the resources, client can't able to create the web services. That is the reason we depend upon the server. Next, on the top, you may ask me a question, what type of services the server might be providing? The main two services, what actually it might be providing is interacting with the DB. Okay, remember we already discussed at the very starting stage that client cannot directly hit the database. It has to hit the server. Through server, we are going to hit the database. From where the DB will be responding back to the server and server will respond back to the UI. That is what the flow happens in your general web page, isn't it? So to make an interaction with the DB, we actually go to the services being provided from your server. In the same way, interactions or CRUD operations on DB. Okay, anytime you want to perform some CRUD operations. So what do I mean by CRUD here? Creating, reading, updating, or deleting. So any type of operation, either you want to create a database, you want to read a table, you want to update a table, you want to delete a row or a record, you need to depend upon the services which are being provided from the server. On the top, if you want to interact with files or file operations. Okay, so anytime you want to interact with the files or you want to perform some file operations like reading a file, updating the file content, deleting a file, creating a new file. So if you want to create such type of operations on the files, obviously you depend upon the servers or services what actually server is providing. So these are the main reasons we actually depend upon the server in any web application development. Because a lot of people ask a question, boss, we are into the client side, we are into the web page creation. Why the reason I need to have a server? So these are the main things. We need a server for hosting the resources. We need to use the server for providing some services from the server, which can be used from the client side. Okay. Now, these are the operations of any of the server you go. Examples. Okay, what are the servers which are capable of doing all the above jobs? You can go with something called as Tomcat, Apache, you go for something called as JBoss, you go for something called as WebLogic, you go for something called as .NET server, you go with something called as Python server, you go for something called as PHP server. Like this, hell lot of servers are there, along with something called as Node.js server. Now, I ask you guys, we have to do all these steps in the web application. Now, you go and learn the Apache, Tomcat, or you go with the any of the servers. Okay, any of the servers which is already there. If I ask you guys, please go and learn the stuff. Obviously, you will be having a very good big question mark saying that, boss, if I have to go with the Tomcat, Apache, JBoss, WebLogic, or .NET, etc., do I need to again go with the core concepts of the particular technology? Yes, I go with Java, Apache. First of all, I need to learn what is core Java, how do you create the classes, what is OOPS, etc. Hell lot of things I need to learn. The same with your .NET. Now, the question what it is, boss, we are already expertise into the UI technologies. We are strong on HTML and CSS and the programming language called as JavaScript. Now, what is the server which is useful for us? So that is where we will be going with something called as Node.js server. Node.js is one of the very popular server nowadays in the market. Lot of organizations use actually Node.js. Okay, best example, Uber. You know, Uber app is like very highly used app nowadays in the market for booking the cabs and all. It internally uses Node.js as a application web server for them. Okay, so like that, there are a lot of like Microsoft uses it, Google uses it. So a lot of bigger companies make use of it, and not only bigger company nowadays. Node.js is mostly used by the startups and the smaller organizations, also smaller firms. The reason for that is Node.js is one of the very useful, which is capable of performing all the operations what a server has to do. On the top, it is even free of cost. Okay, you don't need to pay for the license, etc. and all. It is actually free of cost and open source. If you want to provide any type of help or you want to contribute on the development, you can simply start working on it. So as it is a open source technology, you will be getting the help not only from the particular community, but from the particular universe. You are going to get the help for the Node.js, because it's an open source. Anyone can come and anyone can actually or anyone can implement server, and the two free of cost mainly. Okay, so that is the reason it is high in demand, and you get a lot of support from the outside world. You know why JavaScript has got the popularity? Why there are a lot of APIs or JavaScript libraries available? The reason is JavaScript is an open source programming language. Anyone can come, anyone can create anyone can create the server, and anyone can make use of the JavaScript library. They can develop it and they can simply publish it. In the same way, Node.js is also one of the very highly demand in the server. And another main advantage as a UI developer, what you get is Node.js is one of the server which internally uses JavaScript as a programming language. So being a UI developer, we know that we are going to get expertise on the what do you say? We are going to get expertise on the JavaScript programming language. As we'll get expertise on the JavaScript programming language, it will be easy for us to implement the things on the JavaScript. So Node.js is one of the server of its kind, and it is only one of the server which uses JavaScript as a programming language at the server side. So that is the reason we are actually going for the Node.js within our discussions. Okay, so any questions, guys? I haven't started anything called as Node.js, but at least you got an idea why the reason go to the server, etc. and all. Anyone?
Sir, Shreyas asked a question. If many companies are switching their old PHP servers to Node.js servers in the present times.
Okay, okay. So many companies are also switching their old PHP servers to Node.js. Shreyas, when organizations are switching, yes, people switch to the latest technology, that is always valid. But specifically to the PHP, yes, people are doing that. The reason is PHP, right? Not just only a server, we can even create the server side pages under the PHP, which is mostly not recommended. Why so? The reason is PHP is one of the technology. If you create a client side page and using the PHP, every time you need to have the dependency of the server. And once you write a PHP code, it doesn't get executed within the browser directly. It has to be compiled back into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That is the reason people mostly avoid developing the client side pages using the PHP. So based on these type of disadvantages, yes, people might switch from PHP or Java or .NET, some any other technology to the Node.js.
Yes, sir.
Next, any more questions, guys? Anyone?
Sir, if you expertise in JavaScript, so we can't go for PHP server.
If we expertise on
this kind of a server,
if we get expertise on JavaScript, we can't go for the PHP. That is what your question is?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so PHP is a complete different technology, right? It is a technology, it's a language again. And if you go into the PHP, yes, under the PHP, you can write JavaScript code, but it itself is having its own classes, objects, etc., things and all. So that's a complete different platform. That's a complete different type of terminology. If you directly give the PHP code within the browser, it doesn't get executed. You need to give to the PHP compiler, which again converts all the instructions to only plain HTML, CSS, or JavaScript code. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Next. Okay. Hope everyone is clear till here.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good. Just give me a second, guys. Just be a second. Yeah, sure. Okay, so this is about what
Hello,
actually.
sir.
Why? Yes, please.
Sir, I have got a question. Actually, it is not related directly to our course, but like I wanted to ask that are the browsers also written in the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, etc. languages? Like they are capable of executing our code, whatever we are writing.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. So when you are capable of executing a HTML and CSS code, doesn't actually needed that the source container also has to be written in the same technology. It might or it might not be, because when you go with the compilers, because when I say JavaScript, it's a language. Mostly the languages gets created. I mean, they have to get a compiled, they have to get interpreted, they have to get written with all the set of instructions. What are the keywords? What are the predefined objects? Every other thing, right? So mostly either C language or C++ are the best languages. I'm not saying that it is for sure, but those are some of the best languages. Even Python, they actually can talk to the compilers or internally the processor of your operating system, of your system. So that is the reason those are the languages which might be used to develop the programming languages or interpreters or compilers. As per my knowledge, at least HTML and CSS or JavaScript might not be used to create or develop the browsers. It might be some more powerful technologies has to be used. Am I clear, Shreyas?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so now we understood that what is the reason we are going with the server, what are the jobs it has to be done, and why the reason we are choosing the Node.js also. As I said you, two things here, it is more trending and highly used in the market nowadays. Open source, it is available with free of cost. And the second thing is, being a UI developer, we already know JavaScript, and it is easy for us to implement the JavaScript code within the Node.js server. We only need to read the syntax, how to implement the things in the Node.js. Other than that, everything else is the same. Okay. Now, coming into the Node.js, let us see what is the architecture of a Node.js. Okay, Node.js architecture. So the very first thing, so there are some of the predefined features, guys. Let us go into the nodes. Do we have the nodes for the Node.js?
Yes, sir. It has.
We have it? Okay.
Yeah, yes.
Version 1 backend, right?
Backend.
Yeah. So if you see here, the very first thing what actually we have is Node.js is a server-side platform which is built on the top of Google Chrome V8 JavaScript engine. Before this, if I ask you a question, among all the browsers, what do you feel a browser is more faster? Which browser you feel like it is faster?
Chrome.
Obviously it is Google Chrome, guy. So why the reason it is more faster? Internally, the Google uses something called as V8JS engine. Remember, we discussed about this, that every browser, whenever you're installing a browser, indirectly a JavaScript engine also gets downloaded along with the browser, which is useful to execute your JavaScript code. Okay, so Chrome has created this JavaScript engine which is capable of executing the JavaScript code or compile the JavaScript code. Comparatively with the other browsers, it is more and more and more faster. Okay, so V8 engine is more faster compared to with the other technologies here, other servers here. Sorry, other browsers here. Now, when the Node.js is coming, obviously, I'm going to write the instructions in the JavaScript programming language. And after you write the JavaScript code, it has to get compiled or executed. So in order to get compiled or execute the JavaScript code, what we are writing under the Node.js, what Node.js is doing is, it is internally using the V8 Chrome JavaScript engine. Internally, Node.js uses V8 JavaScript Chrome engine. So V8 is the name of the particular compiler. Okay. So as it uses V8, it is very faster in executing the JavaScript code what we write within your Node.js. So that is one of the best point what we have, which adds a advantage to the Node.js for executing the JavaScript code more faster. Okay, so Node.js internally uses event-driven and non-blocking I/O mechanism models. So what do you mean by I/O mechanisms? Node.js is not suitable for such type of applications where you want to trigger the job automatically. You want to do a job of on every evening at 6 o'clock, you have to download all the files. On every morning, early morning, make sure you push all the changes automatically. So if at all you want to perform these type of things using your Node.js, it might not be possible. Why so? Node.js always works with something called as IO based. IO based in the sense, you give me an input, based on that output will be generated. It is not like I automatically trigger some piece of jobs based on the time or whatever that is. Okay, it has to be done automatically. Once you mean, which it cannot be done automatically, you need to put a input request. Based on that, output response will be generated for you. That is the reason Node.js Node.js follows IO mechanism, and that too there is something called as non-blocking mechanism will be followed within your Node.js. So what do you mean by non-blocking here? In your Node.js, there is never a case something called as you will be into a blocked state. Okay, because it uses single threaded model. Node.js internally follows single threaded architecture. Okay, when you have a single threaded, and it also has something called as event looping mechanism, where whenever user request will come, it will not put into the waiting state. It will assign a callback method and simply put into the event loop, so that the user request, whatever he has sent, will not go into the waiting state. It will be keep on executing. So that is the reason Node.js is a single threaded model while executing the instructions. Okay. Next, Node.js is an open source and cross-platform runtime environment using which we could develop server-side and networking-based application. So as we discussed, Node.js is an open source. It is free of cost available. Anyone can come and anyone can contribute under the Node.js, and it is cross-platform support. A Node.js can work on any of the operating system. It is not dedicated only for the Windows or Linux or Ubuntu or so and so, but any type of operating system, Node.js is capable of getting executed. Next, JavaScript is a programming language which we could use in order to write the instruction. So that is one of the very, very, very big point or plus point as a developer you have, that only JavaScript code gets executed within the Node.js. So you already got expertise in the JavaScript, so it is easy to implement. Node.js comes with rich library of various JavaScript modules, simplifies the development of the web application using Node.js. So this is one of the very important point. As it is open source, you get the support from the outside world. Remember, in your JavaScript code, when we are writing, I remember like when I was talking about the closures and all, we talked about a topic, something called as libraries. Okay. What do you mean by this libraries here? Predefined JavaScript code, what we create, and that can be used across the applications. Okay, once you develop it, it can be used across the applications, isn't it? Now, what my requirement is, when you go to your Java Node.js here, as the Node.js is open source, a lot of people will keep developing some modules. They simply publish it to you. You can just make use of them. And what do you mean by a node module? If you go into the C language, you would have heard about something called header files, isn't it? So header files are the one which provides the predefined methods. In the same way, if you go to Java, you would have heard about something called as packages. So what do you mean by package? A predefined stuff which is already having the one which is already being defined. You just make use of the library, or you just make use of the package. In the same way, when you go to the Node.js, it is having something called as module, a predefined module. It comes with some predefined node modules being developed by node developers. And when you go to your when you want more support from outside, there are some external modules also, like a lot of people have developing, and you just make use of them. So if at all you want to explore all the node modules, there is something called as npmjs.com, node package manager JavaScript code. As a it is one of the very biggest code repository, guys. These guys having too much of code than the GitHub, because a lot of node modules. Now I say I would like to work on cookies. Okay, search here. When I click on search, you should be able to see list of all the node modules. Say for example, this is the node module what I wanted. Once you click on the node module, so npm.js is a dedicated web page which will provide you the help on list of all the modules which are available along with the documentation. Now, if you see cookies is the node module, and you could see who. You should be able to see the author information. Where is that? Author. Explore dependency. Where is this author? If you see here, you should be able to see the author when it is getting loaded. When I say cookies concept, right? When I click on cookies concept, you should be able to see here. See here, Doug Wilson is the one who has created this guy. And when I go to this guy, see, this is the guy. Now, once I click on this guy, you should be able to get the information on this guy who has actually created that package. Like this, we ourselves can create any number of node modules, what others are wanted, you simply publish it. So the advantage what you get as a developer is a lot of people are working on this and a lot of people will keep on publishing that guy. It is not like only predefined thing, they will come that only I need to use. No, you can create whatever the node module you want. You just publish that guy. If it is useful by everyone, they can just simply download and make use of it. So npmjs.com is the dedicated web page which is used to explore or see the documentation of what Node.js are available, what Node.js modules are available, and what is the use of each and every Node.js module, who is the author, when it got published, what are its dependencies. Those all information will be part of your npmjs.com. Okay. So on the top, what are the other advantages we have? Node.js is a combination of runtime environment and JavaScript library. Obviously, Node.js internally have a concept of runtime environment. We have some commands where you can run and it internally supports all the JavaScript concepts, whatever you have. Okay. So let us go into the features of your Node.js. I mean, what are the main features which are called pillars of your Node.js, which is making it so popular nowadays in the market? So the very first thing what you have is asynchronous and event driven. So we already know the difference between the synchronous and asynchronous, right? Asynchronous in the sense, once you put a request to the server, you don't wait for the response. You keep continuing executing the instructions. The same thing gets followed within your Node.js. It internally follows the asynchronous way, where when it is processing the data, it doesn't wait, it keep continuing the remaining further instructions. And it is also something called as event-driven mechanism. So what do you mean by event-driven mechanism? Only when there is a request, you put some request, either click on it or you say that, okay, give me the data, put the data. Once there is a request from the user, then only it will process it, then it is going to respond back. Otherwise, it is not going to get invoked automatically. On the top, it is faster in processing. We just discussed it, right? As it internally uses the V8 JavaScript engine, it is very faster in executing the instructions. Okay. And Node.js is a single threaded model. It is not going to create multiple threads here, and it is highly scalable. You can extend the features of it to up to any level you want. You can actually do that. There is no concept of buffering. It is not like, okay, I'll be buffering some piece of data, later I will allow the user to access it. No, Node.js never buffer any type of data. It's an event driven and IO based. You put a request, based on that I'm going to process, then I'm going to respond. Nothing like buffering or caching stuff and all. Okay, so this is one of the architecture what we have, guys. If we go to this guy, I already opened this. So this is the internal architecture what Node.js follows. Okay. So if you see on the left side, user 1, user 2, user 3, n number of requests are going, which we call it as IO request. And here you see T1 V8 implies under the V8 JavaScript engine, a single thread got created. And if you see, it is under a loop. See here, the blue lines are actually rotating. So internally, a event loop happens. Whatever the user request will come, it will be falling under this event loop. by the T1 V8. I mean the single threaded, which is on the top of V8, and it will be delegated to the IO Libio. It is one of the external library which is internally used under the Node.js. There is some other external library. If you see POSIX async threads. So POSIX is also one of the external library or predefined stuff which is internally being used under the Node.js. So what they will do, use under the T1, whatever the request will come, they keep under the event looping, and through delegated IO, whenever you have the corresponding callback, that will be sent to the post async threads, and that is what it will be executing, and it will be, if there is a needed, they will be interacting with the database or the file system, and they will respond back to the user. So these type of architecture, I mean a broader picture of this guy will be followed in your Node.js. Three main things you need to understand. Node.js internally uses V8 JavaScript engine. Node.js internally uses a single threaded model. It doesn't create multiple threads for multiple requests. And the third one is it is a IO based, non-blocking IO mechanism it follows. It never goes into the block state, and it will be keep on going on into a callback method functionality. That is where you achieve the non-blocking IO mechanism. Okay. So these are some of the features and architectures. And on the top, whenever we install Node.js, along with the Node.js, we do even get something called as Node Package Manager part. So what is this? Remember, like whenever we install the Node.js, there is something called as npm. Once you say npm-v, you will even get the version of the npm. And once you install the Node.js, along with the Node.js, you get the npm also get installed. You don't need to install it manually. So Node Package Manager is a piece of software, comes along with the Node.js. The use of this software is used to manage the node modules. Manage the node modules in the sense, you want to install a node module, you want to uninstall a node module, you want to check the version, you want to upgrade it, anything you want to work with the node module, you can do with your npm package manager. Okay, if you see here, it is through npm. We could work with installation, uninstallation, updation, anything can be done using that. And as I discussed, Node.js module, everything, a predefined stuff is part of your Node.js module. We don't talk something, we don't say it as a library or package, we call it as a node module. Okay. So a module in a Node.js is a simpler or complex functionality organized in a single or multiple JavaScript files. Now, when I say it's a node module, it might be a single JS file or multiple JS files. Okay. Each module in Node.js has its own context, and so that it doesn't interfere with other modules or doesn't interrupt the global scope. So whatever the piece of code which is part of your node module, they never ever affect the other existing node module. It's all independent. Okay. So if at all you have to install the node modules or node softwares and all, remember we already discussed that. How do we go to the Node.js org, download the setup file, install it, and after installing, how do you see whether Node is already installed or what is the version of npm got installed? So those all things can be done, which I have already made it, guys. Following are the basic steps to create a HTTP server. These things I will discuss, but before this, I mean, how to create a server under the Node.js, how do we install node module? We'll come to that step. But up to that, any questions on the topics or the features or the advantages of your Node.js server? Anyone? Hope everyone got a good idea of what actually Node.js is, guys.
Yes,
And
sir.
one more thing, guys, another main thing what you need to look out here is, whenever you go with any of the other servers, like you go with Apache server, JBoss server, WebLogic server, so those servers are once you install a server implies you are ready to make use of it. But coming to the Node.js server, once you install a Node.js server, doesn't mean that you have installed the Node.js server, but we have installed the platform. We set up the platform of the Node.js within the current machine. On the top, we need to write the piece of code in order to create a server on the top of Node.js. Okay, that is the reason whenever we say that Node.js installation is done, it is just a platform installation is done. It is not the server installation. In order to make use of a server, we need to create the set of instructions. You need to write the set of instructions to create a server and make use of it. So how do we create a server? What is this HTTP module? What are the steps involved in order to create a simple HTTP server within the Node.js? That part I'm going to discuss tomorrow. But today, any questions up to this bit of idea of what actually Node architecture is and features or pillars of Node.js? And tomorrow I will even discuss about file operations. So file operations cannot be done client side, right? How the server guy will interact with the files, writing a file, reading a file, appending a file. So those type of things we'll be discussing in the tomorrow's class. So any questions up to this, guys?
Sir, in Node.js, the modules are divided in different parts. If I want to create a new module, can I do that?
Yes, we ourselves can create a new module. We can make use of in your project. You feel that this can be used by others, you can publish it within the NPM. They will check for the code. If they feel like it is advantageable, they simply publish it. Yes, it is possible.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Next.
So Node.js servers work on single thread or multiple threads?
Node.js always works on single threaded model. No multiple threads will be created.
Okay.
Next. So for today, guys, everyone, please go through the notes once, go to each and every point, understand the history, the broader picture of the Node.js, the architecture, go to the image, everything, and try to explore something from outside also. Okay, if you get any points, new points or things what we haven't discussed, you can get it tomorrow. Tomorrow we can discuss. And as I said you, tomorrow we will sit and we will start working on how to create a simple Node server, how you're going to write the JavaScript code, etc. I'm going to discuss tomorrow. I mean, today we can do that, but I don't want to overload on the day one itself. And one main thing, guys, you as a developer need to change your mind from now. Till now, whatever the code we have written, it's purely the JavaScript or purely the client-side code we have written. But from now, your mood or your way of thinking about the technology or the requirement has to be changed, that how we are going to write the piece of code on the server side. Okay. Fine, guys. If you don't have any questions, maybe we can pause for now today. We'll meet again back on tomorrow, same time. And as discussed, we are going to work on the Node.js part. Okay. So let's sign off for today and have a good night for everyone, guys. We'll meet again back on tomorrow. Bye for today.
Right, sir. Take care. Bye.
Good night, sir.
Good night all.